Welcome to Story Time with Chris and Adam. And today's story time is going to be about Ranger School.
Yeah.
So Chris obviously has a completely different experience as a Ranger Battalion guy and Ranger qualified, and I'm a Ranger qualified Air Force guy. And we actually just BSing here, sitting here. We went to Ranger School
around at the same time. Yeah. I was graduating, probably cleaning up when he was starting to get smoked.
Yeah, exactly.
Starting to suck. I was finishing the suck when he was starting to suck.
Yep. So you know, as a lot of you know, Ranger School, premier combat leadership school in the world, and it's a big suck experience. And we just wanted to kind of share some of our thoughts on Ranger School.
You know, it's a way to learn a lot about yourself at the very least. But it's extremely arduous, tough. And I do remember one of my experiences. I was thinking, I remember mountain phase, and we were sitting in what we call a blocking position, and it was cold. I was in the wintertime, so we got to mountain phase. I think it was November by the time we got to mountain phase.
Brutal.
And it's beautiful up in Dahlonega. If you're not at Ranger School.
Yeah.
You don't want to be. That's the word. But I remember I had to set up a blocking position, and the RI told me I had to lay in this puddle, and I was freezing. And I just didn't understand why I couldn't move out of the puddle to set the blocking position. But it was because he just wanted me to suffer and wanted somebody to do it. And I remember laying in that puddle for about 30 minutes at this blocking position before I actually moved. And it still resonates with me today because I still can't feel my toes up to this day. But it was just, man, I really could take a lot of crap.
Yeah.
You know, I could take the pain and the freezing cold for a long period of time if I really wanted something. And it was thinking back of it now, it was a wonderful experience. At that time it wasn't, but I did learn a lot about myself and mental toughness and intestinal fortitude.
Yeah, totally. Intestinal fortitude, and right in the Ranger Creed, intestinal fortitude. That was, I'd say, the single biggest takeaway for me. There wasn't a day I didn't think about quitting. You know, I went straight through, graduated, but there wasn't a day, and I actually, and apparently that wind is kicking around here. It was sad to see. I had written letters to my wife, and I was talking about quitting, and you know, I just know if I can do this anymore, and you know, but just that having that mental toughness to fight on to the Ranger objective, and you know, and complete school,
and having your Ranger buddy there and that helped. Having that person with you too, that was sucking with you.
Yep.
But the misery that you go through, what is more than anything though, is that just the ability that you have to try to embrace the suck.
Yeah.
You know, you really do. You have to say, it's awful. It's not going to get any better.
Nope.
All right, let's hug the hell out of it, and let's just make it good. And let's try to make a benefit out of it.
Yeah,
I do. Really
now, I didn't think, you know, looking back on it now, how much Ranger School did for me as an airman, as opposed to a soldier. How much it did for my military career and the leadership and what I got out of it. You know, did I learn how to, you know, be better at map and compass and leading patrols at Ranger School? I guess so, but it was more that, you know, that leadership of, you know, having that experience to be able to lead people, and
when they don't want to be led, because they're just feeling as miserable as you are. That is the most difficult thing I had was being in charge and trying to get people to do what you need them to do
that are sucking as bad as you
and
are.
They don't want to do it.
Yeah,
and they don't want to, and they're complaining. And then it's kind of ironic, but then it is very ironic, not kind of ironic, that when it's your turn to be led, even though you just went through this miserable stage trying to lead somebody else, you don't want to be led either.
No, exactly. Yeah. Why aren't they doing what I want them to do? Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Do you have a single fondest, like your fondest memory?
Yeah, I do. I remember walking in Florida phase or swamp phase. I remember walking, and you were all starting to drone at that point. You know, it was falling.
Oh yeah, droning.
One of the coolest things is you see guys walking in these Ranger files, and they just start to go this way. Well, they're falling asleep while they're walking, and I fell asleep while I was walking, and you seen Wizard of Oz?
Yeah.
You guys seen Wizard of Oz, right?
Yeah.
I started to see the little flying monkeys in the trees, and I would see the flying monkeys in the trees go back and forth and back and forth, and then I started to drone and go that way, and my Ranger buddy stopped me.
Yeah.
He says, "Wake up, wake up!"
Yeah.
I was seeing the flying monkeys.
Yeah.
I still remember the flying monkeys jumping
wizard,
from tree. You know, swamp phase was. Yeah, that was brutal for me. Because that's the end of it.
Yeah,
you're completely.
But the light's there, light at the end of the tunnel, right? Yeah,
it is, and getting back, and you know, to the Gator Bar, and
Yeah,
having your 8 hot dog.
Hot dogs.
Hot
Yeah,
dogs,
yeah.
and I had
Ate them till I threw up.
You did.
Yep.
3 cans of Mountain Dew,
Yeah.
and then actually I even got some Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah.
Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah.
On the happy side, I still do remember when I walked into my final at Swamp Phase there, and I walked in to see if I passed.
Yeah.
And I remember the RI sitting there, and he's looking at my sheets, and he's going, "Man," he goes, "Well, you did well here. This last field exercise here, you led the troops well, but you kind of screwed up here, and I wasn't going to pass you." And I was like, "Crap." And he goes, "Well, but I asked, my senior, and the senior, his senior guy, he goes, 'Well, would you go to combat with this kid?'" And he says, "Yeah, I'd go to combat with him."
Yeah.
And then he stood up and he handed his hand out to me, and he goes, "Welcome to the Brotherhood."
Yeah.
And that, obviously,
cool
I'm
is
almost
that,
starting
man?
starting to cry here, because
yeah.
that's still resonates with me. It's just like, wow.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I accomplished it. And that was after getting kicked out of the military and having to go back in. So to me, it was a huge deal. And like I said, I almost start to cry every time.
Florida phase was, it's the last phase of Ranger School, and and everything, as Chris said, everything's graded, go no go stuff.
Yeah.
So you're always worrying, am I going to pass each phase or pass at the end? All that stuff. I mean, you can make it to the end, and you find out you're a no go.
Find your no go,
right?
and have to either recycle or you're done, and that's that's always that possibility. And being from the Ranger Regiment too, if you don't pass, you're done. You get kicked out of Ranger Regiment. There is no staying at Ranger Regiment if you don't have your Ranger tab. So that was always on your mind. It's like, I got to pass, because if I don't pass, well, then I'm out. I'm going to 82nd, or not saying anything wrong with those units, guys, but I'm out of Ranger Regiment. And so it's basically like you're getting fired from your job. Yeah.
One of the funny things that I think about, I was actually teaching night vision training in my SWAT team recently, and we were doing some wooded stuff with it out in the woods, and I remember in Ranger School, I was a rear security guy on one of the patrols, and we had stopped, I think just for a SILS check or something, and I was so tired, I was droning, I was starting to see the wizard, as Chris was talking about, and I remember, and we had night vision on, PVS 14, and I remember I must have fallen asleep standing up, and I remember just opening my eyes, I'm looking through the green, I'm looking around, I didn't see a damn.
You see anybody?
So
they left you.
Nobody. I'm like, oh no, this is not good. Fortunately, I just went forward, and I was able to catch a glimpse of the next guy in front of me. Thank God.
That brings up the Florida phase the same way. We started. They took us out. We had to dig our little fighting positions, and of course we're just digging. We're not going to stay in them. We're just going to dig them up. Yeah. And you know how we had the 550 cord all of our we 550 cord everything too, because you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
And I had a snap link on my 550 cord on my M16. We still had a long. I didn't get to carry short guns. You had a longbow. Well, I got tired of digging that trench, that fighting position, with my M16, because it kept getting tangled up in my 550 cord. So I took it off and I set it against the tree.
Oh no!
Wrong answer.
Yeah.
Well, I finished digging it, and then the RIs are like, "Get it! We got to go. We got to move. We're moving back. Get in line. Get in formation. We're moving." We took off. We walked about a half a mile, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh! I forgot my rifle."
You must have had a heart attack.
I did.
Yeah.
I was like, and I ran to the platoon sergeant that was in charge. Luckily, I knew him, and luckily him and I were we're friends. I said, stop, I got to go find my MC. I don't know how the heck I was going to find it because it was against a tree in the middle of Florida.
Yeah.
And I don't know, God must have been shining down or looking down on me because I ran back and I actually found that black M16 in the dark leaning against a tree.
Yeah.
And but I do remember I do remember that feeling of complete helplessness going, oh my gosh, what did I do?
How cool though to be out there in the graduation ceremony. They're doing the Rangers in action demo, and you get your tab. I mean, I think I stared at that black and gold for months.
It's a good feeling, and I even still have it tattooed with my scroll right there. No, it's a great feeling, and it is a proud sense of accomplishment. Yeah. But yeah, I will never be going through Ranger School again. Anybody that's thinking about joining the service, it is something that you should aspire to at least try and do. And if you make it, great. If you don't, well, that's just how it goes sometimes. But at least give it a shot. I
still fall back, like if I'm doing hardcore PT or I'm doing something with my team guys or something like that, I go the Ranger Creed. I couldn't forget it if I tried. I literally, if I need to sustain a duration, like I'm in a plank position doing PT or just doing something that sucks these days, I just go through the Ranger Creed in my head, and it gets me through it, man.
Yep.
It just kind of keeps me going.
Readily will I display.
Yeah,
brother.
buddy.
Yeah, you know, it's tremendous. So all you have gone through Ranger School, outstanding. Proud of all y'all. All you that are thinking down the line, do it. And you know, for everybody else out there, we just appreciate y'all listening to our little fireside bedtime
story
stories
time
here.
with Chris and Adam. Yeah. Thanks for listening in, guys.